Imagine this scenario for a second. You walk into the office on a Tuesday morning.
Right. Just a normal Tuesday.
Yeah, totally normal Tuesday. You open up your laptop, you grab your coffee, and you check your advertising dashboards.
As we all do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you see that you spent, I don't know, $100,000 yesterday.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And across all your campaigns, you drove tens of thousands of clicks. Your cost per click was incredibly cheap, like maybe 10 cents.
10 cents. That's amazing.
Right. The traffic just flooded in. I mean, if you were running a traditional digital marketing campaign, you'd be popping champagne right then and there.
Oh, absolutely. You'd be sending out a Slack message to the entire company claiming a massive victory.
You'd be asking for a raise.
Yeah, definitely.
But in the world we operate in, you look a little deeper into the data and your stomach completely drops.
Oh, no.
Because out of those tens of thousands of clicks, almost everyone who actually downloaded your product deleted it within 5 minutes.
Ouch. Yeah, that's the nightmare.
You didn't generate a single dollar of revenue. You didn't acquire a loyal customer base. You literally just took $100,000 of company money, put it in a pile, and set it on fire.
And that is, honestly, it is a phenomenal reality check. And it's the exact scenario that plays out in hiring rooms and like onboarding sessions across the tech industry every single week. People walk in expecting one reality, and they're handed something completely alien.
Which is exactly why we're dedicating today's deep dive to unpacking this phenomenon. We are stepping into our roles today as senior user acquisition managers.
Which, full disclosure, usually requires a lot of caffeine.
So much caffeine.
A really high tolerance for chaos, and a deep, deep appreciation for complex spreadsheets.
Oh, the spreadsheets. But yeah, we're looking at a massive structural shift in the mobile growth industry right now. Tech companies are desperate for growth talent. The app ecosystem is it's expanding at a dizzying rate.
It really is.
And to fill those seats, companies are heavily recruiting from the traditional digital marketing talent pool.
All right, they're bringing in people who have mastered SEO, people who can, like, optimize a web landing page in their sleep.
Yeah.
People who have run massive Facebook ads campaigns for e-commerce brands and think they've seen it all.
And those candidates walk in with a pristine resume, exuding absolute confidence.
Oh, the confidence is off the charts.
They look at the role of a user acquisition or UA manager as just a slight pivot. They think, well, ads are ads. I buy traffic. I get conversions. I optimize the funnel. I've done this for years.
How different can it really be?
Exactly. How different can it be? And that overconfidence is the exact trap we are dissecting today.
Yeah.
We have a singular, incredibly focused source on the desk to guide us through this. It's a piece by Long Fan, a veteran in the space. The title is UA Insider #03 Digital Marketing versus UA Marketing Kekgi Now Twingan Dokong.
And for those of you who don't speak Vietnamese, that roughly translates to, what's the difference between digital marketing and UA marketing? Can you switch industries?
Right. So our mission today is to tear down the illusions, explore the really harsh learning curves, and map out the mandatory mindset shifts you need to survive this transition.
But I think it is essential to start by validating why that illusion exists in the first place.
Fair point. Let's do that.
Because Longfan's article is very fair about this. He starts by acknowledging the foundational similarities. Like, if you are sitting there listening to this and you're a seasoned digital marketer contemplating a move into mobile apps, you're not starting from zero.
No, definitely not.
You have a massive head start compared to someone with no marketing background at all.
Right. We have to give credit where credit is due. The foundational logic of digital attention absolutely transfers over.
Totally.
At the core of both disciplines, you're trying to convince a human being to stop scrolling, pay attention to your message, and take a specific action.
Yeah, and if you understand basic human psychology, if you know how to write a hook that stops a thumb from swiping.
A thumb-stopping hook.
Exactly. If you understand the visual hierarchy of an ad creative, you possess highly valuable skills.
You also understand the basic mechanics of the platforms. I mean, if you know how to navigate the back end of Meta ads or Google ads.
Which is half the battle, honestly.
It is. If you understand how to structure a campaign, set a daily budget, and target an audience segment, you have the operational foundation. The physics of digital advertising, the idea that you spend capital to buy distribution and you must generate a return on that capital, that remains the same.
Okay, let's unpack this, though, because this is exactly where the trap snaps shut.
Okay.
Longfan argues that despite these shared foundational skills, Transitioning into user acquisition requires what he explicitly calls learning from scratch. And I want to challenge that premise right out of the gate just to set the stage for our discussion. As senior UA managers, are we just inflating our own egos here?
Oh, I like this.
Is the gap genuinely that wide, or are we just throwing around intimidating acronyms like SCAN, MMP, and LTV to sound smarter than the folks running SEO and email campaigns?
I love that you're pushing back on this because there is undeniably a certain amount of gatekeeping in any highly technical, specialized field.
Oh, for sure.
It's human nature to want your job to seem uniquely difficult. But, and this is a big but, if we connect this to the broader structural reality that Longfan outlines, the gap isn't about intelligence.
Right.
It isn't about one group being smarter or better marketers than the other. The gap is fundamentally environmental and structural.
Yes.
The very ecosystem you operate in changes so drastically that the tools, the metrics, and the instincts you relied on in traditional digital marketing actually become liabilities if you try to force them into a UA context.
That is a critical distinction. It's not that the digital marketer is playing the game poorly. It's that the rules of the game, the shape of the field, and the way the score is kept have all completely changed.
Exactly.
The source breaks this massive structural shift down into 5 distinct differences.
Yeah.
Let's get straight into the first one, which fundamentally alters how you view success.
Let's do it.
The goalpost shift. We are moving from a world of immediate gratification to a world that demands a long-game perspective.
Right. So in traditional digital marketing, think about an e-commerce brand selling shoes or a B2B software company trying to get enterprise leads. The goal is highly immediate and highly visible.
Very visible.
You want the user to fill out the form. You want them to sign up for the newsletter. You want them to put the shoes in the cart and complete the checkout.
The loop is incredibly tight. You show the ad on Instagram, they click it, they go to your mobile website, they buy the shoes.
Done.
The transaction is complete. The pixel fires, your dashboard lights up green, you register a positive return on ad spend for that day, and your job essentially is done. You won the interaction.
But in UA marketing, the goals operate on an entirely different timeline.
Completely different.
The initial goal is getting someone to actually download the application onto their phone. But what Longfan emphasizes, and what every UA manager learns the hard way, is that the install is literally just the starting line.
It's so true.
It is not the finish line. UA focuses heavily on retention, on long-term ROAS, return on ad spend, calculated over months, not days, and LTV, the lifetime value of the user.
Let's really break down why this matters, because I can hear a senior B2B digital marketer listening right now scoffing at this.
Oh yeah, they're rolling their eyes.
They might be thinking, look, I optimize campaigns to close $50,000 enterprise software contracts. That takes a 6-month sales cycle and multiple touch points. Don't tell me that getting someone to download a free mobile game and play it a few times is somehow more complex.
It's a totally fair pushback. I mean, closing a massive enterprise deal is incredibly difficult.
Yes.
But it's not about the difficulty of the initial conversion. It's about where the marketing responsibility ends and the financial reality of the transaction. What's fascinating here is that in the mobile app ecosystem, the vast majority of apps are free to download.
Yeah.
They monetize through in-app purchases, subscriptions, or by showing ads to the user over time. Therefore, when you, the UA manager, convince a user to download that free app, you haven't actually made your company any money.
You've done the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You have put the company in the red.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You paid Meta or Google or TikTok $2 to acquire that user. That user has generated zero revenue. You are starting in a deficit.
Yep.
The real job of a UA marketer isn't just acquiring the user. It is acquiring a user who has a high probability of staying in the app, engaging with it repeatedly, and eventually generating more than $2 in value over their entire life cycle.
Right. Because if you acquire 100,000 users for 10 cents each, but they all churn and delete the app by tomorrow, you haven't executed a brilliant marketing campaign.
No.
You have just burned $10,000 of your company's cash reserves with absolutely nothing to show for it.
I often use this analogy when I'm speaking with candidates trying to make the jump.
Let's hear it.
Digital marketing, especially for lower-ticket consumer goods or lead generation, is a lot like speed dating.
Okay.
You're optimizing your pitch, your lighting, your wardrobe, just enough to get the person across the table to say yes to a cup of coffee.
Right.
You get the lead. Once they sit down as coffee shop, your job as the marketer is largely done.
Yeah, the sales team takes over.
Exactly. The sales team or the product quality itself takes over. But UA marketing is a marriage.
Oh, wow.
You aren't just trying to get them to the altar. You have to figure out mathematically if this person is still going to be around and contributing to the mortgage in year 5 of the relationship.
That analogy perfectly captures the analytical shift required.
Yeah.
You are moving from transactional thinking to lifetime value modeling.
Yes.
You aren't just looking at the cost of the initial date. You're modeling the future financial trajectory of that entire relationship based on early behavioral signals.
So to you listening, think about your current role. When you look at your marketing dashboard on a Friday afternoon, what are you actually optimizing for?
Are you optimizing for the click?
Right.
Are you celebrating when the lead hits the inbox? Or are you tracking the cohort value of that lead 6 months, 12 months down the line?
If your focus is primarily on the top of the funnel and immediate conversions, stepping into UA is going to be a massive shock to the system.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the structural reason why this tracking is so complex. The second major difference Longfan highlights: the environment. We are moving from clear skies to a complete black box.
This is where the technical realities of the transition hit the hardest. Traditional digital marketing predominantly happens on the open web, and the web historically was built to be an open, trackable environment.
It was.
If you own a brand, you own your website. You control the code. You can place a Facebook pixel, a Google tag, or a piece of custom JavaScript directly on your site.
Right. And when a user clicks your Facebook ad, they transition directly from Facebook's environment to your environment.
The pixel watches them land on the page. It watches them browse different categories. It tracks when they add an item to the cart, and it fires a triumphant little signal back to Facebook when they complete the checkout.
It is a seamless, continuous thread of deterministic data. You know exactly who clicked and exactly what they bought.
But user acquisition happens in the app ecosystem, and the app ecosystem is the polar opposite of the open web.
Completely.
It is a highly fragmented, heavily guarded series of walled gardens. Let's trace the actual user journey of an app install, because when you break it down step by step, you realize how disjointed it truly is.
Let's do it. Walk us through it.
Okay. A user is scrolling through Instagram. They see your ad for a new fitness app. They're interested, so they tap the call to action button. In the web world, this tap takes them to your site.
Right.
In the app world, this tap yanks them out of Instagram and drops them into a third-party marketplace that you do not own and cannot control, the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store.
And this is the critical moment. This is where the lights go out.
Yes. Because Apple and Google do not allow you, the advertiser, to put your tracking pixels on their App Store product pages.
They absolutely do not.
You cannot see what the user does once they hit the App Store. The user looks at the reviews, maybe hesitates, then clicks download. They have to authenticate with Face ID or a password.
Yep.
Then they have to wait for the progress bar to fill up.
Yeah.
And they have to leave the App Store, find the new icon on their home screen, and actually open the application.
It is a massive dark zone.
Yeah.
Every single one of those steps introduces friction, and more importantly, it introduces a break in the data chain.
Right.
The moment they leave Instagram, you are completely blind. You only regain visibility when they finally open your app on their device.
And this raises an enormous technical challenge. How do you connect the user who clicked the ad on Instagram with the anonymous user who just launched your app 15 minutes later?
Exactly.
How do you prove that Instagram deserves the credit for that install?
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here, because if I'm a senior digital marketer, I'm listening to this and thinking, okay, but the open web isn't so open anymore either.
Okay, fair point.
We have Apple's Safari browser blocking third-party cookies by default. We have Google Chrome constantly threatening to deprecate cookies. We have a massive rise in ad blockers. Isn't the web environment becoming just as murky, just as much of a black box as the app ecosystem?
It is a very astute observation, and it's true that web tracking is degrading significantly. The days of perfect, pixel-perfect web attribution are ending.
Yeah.
However, there is a difference in kind, not just degree, between the web and the app ecosystems. Even with severe cookie deprecation on the web, you are still dealing with a user transitioning directly from the ad network to a property you host.
Right.
You can still utilize first-party data, server-side tracking, and contextual clues to piece the journey together.
You still own the destination.
Exactly. But in UA, the structural separation is absolute. The entity showing the ad meta, the marketplace hosting the download Apple, and the final application running on the mobile operating system are three entirely distinct multi-billion-dollar corporate entities.
Often with completely conflicting privacy agendas and business models.
Yes. The user literally leaves the measurable internet, enters a proprietary closed black box, and emerges somewhere else entirely. It's not just that the data is obfuscated, it's that the physical infrastructure of the internet is partitioned against you.
Which means the metrics you use to evaluate success have to fundamentally change, because the environment dictates what you can reliably measure.
Right.
And that transitions us perfectly into the third core difference from Longfan's piece, the scorecard. We're looking at a brutal shift from vanity metrics to survival
Oh,
metrics.
that's a big one.
When you look at a traditional digital marketing dashboard, it is heavily weighted toward top-of-funnel indicators. You live and die by CPC, the cost per click. You obsess over CTR, the click-through rate. You monitor CPM, the cost per thousand impressions. If a marketer runs a campaign, achieves an incredibly low CPC, and drives a massive volume of traffic to a landing page, they're generally celebrated.
Oh, I have seen this exact scenario play out in interviews time and time again.
Oh, yeah.
A candidate will sit across from me, incredibly proud, and say, I completely revamped our ad creatives. We used a new hook, and I drove our CPC down from $1.20 to just 15 cents, and our click-through rate tripled.
They think they nailed it.
They sit back waiting for me to be astounded. But as a UA manager, a 15-cent click doesn't impress me. In fact, a suspiciously cheap click usually terrifies me.
Because in UA, a cheap click is completely detached from the financial reality of the business.
Exactly.
The metrics that actually matter, the metrics that determine whether your app survives or goes bankrupt, are entirely different. The UA manager is judged on CPI, cost per install. They're judged on CPA, cost per action, which usually means a key event like an in-app purchase or registration. And most crucially, they're judged on time-bound retention cohorts. Day 0, Day 3, Day 7, Day 30 retention.
So when that candidate tells me they got a 15-cent click, my immediate reflexive question is, okay, but what was the day 3 retention of the users who clicked that ad?
Right. Let's paint a vivid picture of why this matters for the listener. Let's say you are that candidate. You want to get the lowest CPC possible. So you design a highly sensational, slightly misleading ad creative. Maybe it's a mobile game ad that shows gameplay that isn't actually in the real game. We've all seen those.
Oh, the classic pull-the-pin puzzle ads when the game is actually just a match 3 candy game.
Exactly. The ad is incredibly engaging. Users click it like crazy. Your CTR skyrockets. Your CPC drops to 10 cents. The traffic flows into the App Store, and a huge percentage of them download it because they really want to play that specific puzzle.
Makes sense.
Your cost per install looks amazing. Maybe it's just 50 cents an install. You are ready to ask for a promotion.
But then reality sets in.
Right. Then you look at the cohort data. The users open the app. They realize it's a match 3 game, not the puzzle they saw in the ad. They feel tricked.
Naturally.
Within 5 minutes, 95% of them close the app and uninstall it from their phones. Your day 1 retention is essentially 0.
0.
Because they didn't stay, your lifetime value, your LTV, is 0. Your return on ad spend, your ROAS, is massively negative. You didn't save the company money by getting a cheap click. You literally lit the entire campaign budget on fire because you optimized for the wrong metric.
This is a critical insight. In web-based digital marketing, a cheap, low-quality click isn't great, but it might eventually lead to a retargeting opportunity.
True.
They landed on your site, you dropped a cookie, maybe you show them a display ad later. But in UA, the friction of keeping an app installed on a mobile phone is incredibly high. Storage space is a premium. User attention is scarce.
Very scarce.
A low-quality user in UA is worse than useless. They actively skew your behavioral data, they cost money to acquire, and they provide 0 return. You are optimizing for survival metrics. Did they stay and did they pay? Everything else, the clicks, the impressions, the CTRs, is just vanity.
And here is where the complexities truly compound. Because you cannot measure day 7 retention, and you certainly cannot calculate LTV by ad channel if you don't even know where the user came from in the first place.
Which brings us to the 4th difference in Longfan's breakdown. And honestly, this is the area that breaks people.
It really does.
This is the nightmare scenario for the newbie. Attribution.
Yes. The source specifically highlights this technical hurdle. Longfan writes that this is the exact area where new UA marketers struggle the most. He uses the Vietnamese phrase, "Halo hoi nut," which translates roughly to floundering, spinning your wheels, or being completely bogged down without making progress.
It is the deepest technical chasm between the two fields. Let's break down why they flounder so badly.
Yeah, let's do it.
In traditional digital marketing, attribution figuring out which ad drove which sale is largely handled for you by the platforms. You use UTM parameters.
Yeah.
You stick a simple string of text onto the end of your website URL.
Right.
You plug Google Analytics into your site. It is relatively plug and play. If a user clicks a link with a specific UTM, Google Analytics reads it, and you can clearly see that a specific Facebook campaign led to a specific shopping cart checkout.
It's clean. It's legible.
But in UA,
because of that fragmented walled garden environment we explored earlier, attribution is a highly complex, deeply technical discipline. You cannot use UTM parameters to track someone through the App Store.
it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Instead, you must rely on a piece of technology called a mobile measurement partner, or an MMP.
Okay, stop right there. Let's explain this naturally. If you are a digital marketer trying to become a UA manager and you don't know the mechanics of an MMP, your resume goes straight into the trash.
Pretty much, yeah.
So what exactly is an MMP and why is it mandatory?
An MMP is an independent third-party company. The major players are AppsFlyer, Adjust, Branch, singular. They provide an SDK, a software development kit, which is basically a piece of code that your developers install directly inside your mobile app.
Okay.
The MMP acts as the central referee for all your data.
Let's walk through how this referee actually works in practice. What is the mechanism?
When you run an ad on an ad network, say AppLovin or Unity Ads, you don't use a regular link. You use a tracking link generated by your MMP.
Right.
When the user clicks the ad, they are briefly routed through the MMP server before going to the App Store. The MMP notes the user's IP address, device type, and the time of the click.
They're taking notes.
Exactly. Then when the user finally downloads and opens your app, the MMP SDK inside the app wakes up. It looks at the device information, communicates with the MMP server, and says, hey, I just saw a new user open the app. Do you have a record of this device clicking an ad recently? The server finds the match, attributes the install to Unity Ads, and then, this is the crucial part, sends a digital receipt back to Unity Ads to let them know they won.
And that digital receipt is what the industry calls a postback.
Exactly. A postback is a server-to-server ping. It is the lifeblood of mobile attribution. It is the MMP telling the ad network, confirmed, the user you sent us actually opened the app.
Okay, I'm going to play the naive digital marketer here again because this all sounds incredibly convoluted and expensive.
It is both of those things.
Why is this referee necessary? Why can't I just log into my Meta Ads Manager and my Google Ads Manager and look at the numbers they report? Meta tells me they drove 500 installs today. Google tells me they drove 600. Why do I need to pay an expensive third-party company to sit in the middle? Why can't we just trust the ad networks to grade their own homework?
That is the million-dollar question, and it's the exact question every CFO asks when they see the MMP invoice.
Yep.
The answer comes down to two massive problems: double counting and outright fraud.
Let's tackle double counting first.
Ad networks operate on attribution windows. Usually, if a user clicks an ad, the network claims credit for any install that happens within the next 7 days.
Right, the 7-day click-through window.
Yes. So imagine a user named Sarah. On Monday, Sarah sees an ad for your app on TikTok and clicks it, but gets distracted and doesn't download it.
Happens all the time.
On Wednesday, Sarah is searching for something on Google, sees a search ad for your app, clicks it, and finally downloads it.
Who gets the credit?
Well, if you look at your ad network dashboards, TikTok will say, Sarah installed within 7 days of clicking our ad. We claim 100% credit. Here is one install.
Okay.
Google will say, Sarah clicked our ad immediately before installing. We claim 100% credit. Here is one install.
Yeah.
If you add up the numbers from your individual dashboards, you will think you acquired 2 users.
Oh, wow.
You will think your cost per acquisition is half of what it actually is. But if you look at your actual app database, there is only one Sarah.
So the data is fundamentally lying to you.
Exactly. Without an MMP, you are massively double counting your success. You will overallocate budget to campaigns that aren't actually driving incremental value because the dashboards are artificially inflated.
So the MMP fixes this.
The MMP sits in the middle, sees all the touch points across all the networks, and applies a strict logic, usually last touch attribution, to award the single install to the correct network, which in this case would be Google. It deduplicates the data to provide a single source of truth.
And that's just the innocent double counting. You also mentioned fraud, which is a massive issue in the mobile ecosystem that digital marketers rarely encounter at this scale.
Mobile ad fraud is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Because UA relies so heavily on the CPI model for installs rather than clicks, malicious networks and publishers have massive financial incentives to fake installs.
Right.
They use server farms, bots, and a technique called click spamming, where they bombard the MMP with millions of fake clicks in the background, hoping that one of those fake clicks randomly coincides with a real organic user downloading your app so they can steal the attribution credit.
It's like a thief throwing a million darts at a board in the dark, hoping one hits the bullseye so they can claim the prize.
Precisely.
Ah.
And the MMP is your shield against that. It analyzes the time between the click and the install, the IP addresses, the behavioral patterns to block fraudulent attribution.
Wow.
So when Longfan says attribution is the hardest hurdle, this is why. A UA manager has to understand postbacks, server-to-server integrations, deduplication logic, and fraud prevention mechanisms.
And as if that wasn't complicated enough, we haven't even touched on the absolute earthquake that Apple caused a few years ago. If you are getting into UA today, you have to understand Scan the SCAD network.
Yes, because Apple decided that tracking users via device IDs across different apps was a privacy violation. So they introduced app tracking transparency, which forced apps to ask for permission to track.
And most users said no.
Most users said no. To replace the old attribution model, Apple built Scan.
And how does Scan fundamentally change the job? Let's explain this simply.
Think of the old MMP attribution model like a bouncer at a club who checks everyone's ID at the door, writes down their exact name, what time they arrived, and exactly which promoter handed them a flyer.
Okay.
The bouncer gives you, the club owner, a detailed list at the end of the night. You know exactly who came from where.
Granular deterministic data.
Right. Scan changes the rules. Apple is now the bouncer. Apple says you cannot see the IDs anymore. You cannot know the names. In fact, I'm not even going to tell you how many people the promoter brought in tonight. I will send you a delayed, aggregated report 24 to 48 hours later, and I will only tell you the total headcount. And if the headcount is too low, I won't tell you anything at all to protect user privacy.
That is just, it is a profound loss of visibility. You are trying to optimize campaigns in near real time, but Apple is forcing a 48-hour delay on your data, stripping away the user-level detail, and applying complex privacy thresholds.
And that is the reality of modern user acquisition. Reading this data, making sense of scan conversion values, and mapping it back to your spend is a highly mathematical, deeply technical endeavor.
Yeah.
If you don't know your attribution, you don't know your numbers. And if you don't know your numbers, you cannot survive the next difference. Longfan outlines high-stakes poker, testing and budgeting at scale.
So let's unpack this fifth structural difference. In digital marketing, testing is a fundamental part of the job, but the scale of the testing is what changes so drastically.
Oh, massively.
If you are a digital marketer for a mid-sized brand, testing usually means taking a couple $100, setting up an A/B test on a landing page, maybe swapping a red Buy Now button for a blue one, or testing two different headlines.
Right, it's very contained.
You run it for a week, you look at the statistical significance, and you make a tweak. It's iterative, it's controlled, and the financial risk is very low.
In UA marketing, testing is an entirely different beast. You are not tweaking button colors. You are testing complex video creatives, broad audience targeting, and sophisticated algorithmic bid strategies at a massive financial scale.
We're talking big numbers.
You aren't just spending a few $100s. You might be spending $5,000, $10,000, or $50,000 a day just to feed enough data into an ad network's algorithm so it can exit its learning phase.
This connects directly back to the goals we discussed earlier. The budgets in UA are not just arbitrary marketing slush funds.
No.
They are rigidly, mathematically tied to highly specific financial KPI targets. You operate with a target CPI, you have an expected ROAS, and most importantly, you have a precise payback period.
Let's explain the payback period because it is the core of UA financial modeling. Say your team builds a financial model that dictates you can afford a $10 CPI, meaning you can spend $10 to acquire one user.
Okay.
But that model also dictates that the user must generate $10 of revenue for the company within 60 days. That is your day 60 breaking point.
Meaning, if you spend the $10 today, you are essentially loaning the business money, and you need that loan paid back with interest by day 60. Otherwise, the business runs out of cash flow. Exactly. This is a massive shock for digital marketers. They think testing means trying out different ad copy to see what gets the most clicks. In UA, testing is about deploying capital to stress test an entire financial model.
Wow.
You are feeding data into Meta's algorithm to see if it can find a pocket of users who will not only install for under $10, but who will exhibit the exact monetization behavior required to hit that day 60 break-even target.
If we look at what a senior UA manager actually does on a Tuesday afternoon, They look a lot less like a traditional creative marketer and a lot more like an investment banker.
Oh, 100%.
They're staring at massive cohort tables. They are calculating the velocity of revenue accumulation. If they test a new campaign and by day 7 it is already projecting to hit a 150% ROAS by day 30, they don't just let it run, they scale the budget aggressively.
You pour capital into the winning investment. Conversely, if a campaign is tracking to only hit 60% of its target by day 60, they ruthlessly cut it, even if the creatives look beautiful. It is a highly quantitative, financially rigorous exercise. You are managing a portfolio of investments, and the investments just happen to be user cohorts.
Investment banker for user cohorts. That is exactly what the role demands. And that demands a very specific type of brain. You cannot approach that level of financial responsibility with a purely creative, intuition-based mindset.
No, you really can't.
Which is the perfect conceptual transition into the second half of Longfan's piece, the behavioral requirements. We've talked about the structural differences, the tools, the metrics, the environment. Now, based on the source, what does a digital marketer actually need to change inside their own head to survive?
Longfan outlines 4 crucial mindset shifts. Let's explore them deeply.
Let's go.
The first shift he identifies is moving to an app-first mindset. Now, on the surface, this sounds obvious. I'm marketing an app, so I should think about the app. But it runs much deeper than that.
It does.
As a digital marketer, your brain is fundamentally wired to optimize for the web experience. You think about page load speeds. You think about bounce rates. You think about the time spent on a specific URL.
Yeah.
You have to completely discard that mental framework. You need to start thinking entirely in terms of in-app actions and the mobile user interface.
Right.
You need to obsess over app open rates. You need to scrutinize the completion rate of the onboarding tutorial step by step. Where are users dropping off? Are they completing the registration screen? Are they interacting with the core loop of the app?
The app is a closed, self-contained ecosystem, and your analytical brain needs to live entirely inside it.
Exactly.
It's vital because the consequence of friction is so much higher. If a user gets frustrated on a website, they hit the back button, they might come back later.
Yeah.
If a user gets frustrated during an app onboarding flow, they don't just close the app, they hard press the icon, hit remove app, and delete it from their device. You have lost them forever, and you've lost the money you spent to acquire them. Which leads into the second shift Longfan mentions, the data-driven mindset. And look, I know that data-driven is the most overused buzzword in the entire tech industry.
Oh, tell me about it.
Everyone claims to be data-driven, but in UA, this means something very specific. It means eradicating gut feelings entirely from your decision-making process.
It means you cannot walk into a meeting with the CEO and say, I really feel like this new video ad is going to go viral because it's super funny.
Exactly. Nobody cares if it's funny. Every decision you make, every dollar you request, every conversation you have with leadership must be backed by hard, indisputable cohort data.
Showing the numbers.
You have to be able to say, we tested this video creative against the control. It drove a 15% higher CPI, however. The day 3 retention of the users acquired by this specific video was 40% higher, leading to a projected day 30 ROAS that is 20% above baseline. Therefore, we are allocating $50,000 to this creative.
Wow.
You have to prove everything mathematically. The math is your only shield.
And that data-driven rigor naturally forces you into the third mindset shift, the user lifecycle mindset. We touched on this with the marriage analogy earlier, but it requires a fundamental rewiring of how you view your job description.
It really does.
A digital marketer often generates a lead, hands that lead over to the sales team, and washes their hands of it. I got you the emails. My job is done.
A UA manager does not have that luxury. A UA manager tracks that cohort of users for months, sometimes years. You have to care intensely about what happens long after the acquisition.
Right.
You monitor their engagement patterns.
Yeah.
When do they typically churn? When do they make their first in-app purchase? How does a push notification campaign affect the cohort you acquired last month? You are optimizing the entire life cycle of the user, not just the front door.
And finally, the fourth shift, which ties everything together, the collaboration mindset. Longfan emphasizes this heavily. UA cannot exist in a vacuum. It requires incredibly tight, constant integration with the product team, the monetization team, and the data science team.
This is absolutely vital for survival, because if the UA team is doing their job perfectly, they are acquiring high-quality users at a great price, but the product team has accidentally introduced a bug in the first level of the game, all that acquired traffic is just going to bounce.
All that money is wasted.
Or consider the monetization team. If the monetization manager decides to increase the price of the monthly subscription from $5 to $10, the UA team's entire ROAS prediction model breaks overnight.
Yeah.
The conversion rates will drop, the LTV curve will change, and campaigns that were profitable yesterday will suddenly be losing money today.
You have to be in constant daily communication.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. I want to throw a wrench in this and challenge you.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have these 4 distinct shifts outlined by Longfan. App first, data-driven, lifecycle, and collaboration. If you are mentoring a candidate and you had to rank these, if you had to point to the one single shift that is the absolute hardest for a digital marketer to grasp, the one that causes them to wash out of the industry, which one breaks them?
Because I will lay my cards on the table right now. I think the data-driven shift is the hardest.
Interesting. Make your case. Why the data shift?
Because traditional digital marketing, especially social media marketing, still attracts a lot of creative-leaning folks. It attracts people who rely on intuition, on reading the cultural vibes, on crafting the perfect brand narrative.
Yeah.
Forcing a highly creative person to become a spreadsheet ninja who spends 6 hours a day reconciling scan discrepancy reports and building pivot tables for cohort analysis. That fundamentally breaks people. It removes the joy they found in marketing.
I hear your point, and the technical hurdle of the data is incredibly steep. I have seen many people struggle with the pivot tables.
Right.
But I have to strongly disagree with you. The math can be learned. You can send someone to a boot camp to learn SQL. You can train someone on how to navigate the AppsFlyer dashboard. The true career killer, the shift that is genuinely the hardest to make because it requires a completely different professional ego, is the collaboration mindset.
Really? You think talking to the product team is harder than mastering scan attribution?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about the environment a senior digital marketer usually comes from. In an agency setting or a siloed corporate structure, the digital marketer often has total autonomy over their specific domain.
Okay, I see where you're going.
They control the ad copy, they control the landing page design, they control the budget allocation. They are the king or queen of their little island. But in a mobile app company, a UA manager who thinks they can operate independently is doomed.
Because they don't control the product.
Exactly. They do not write the code. They do not design the levels. If you do not have the humility and, frankly, the political capital to walk over to the lead product manager and say, hey, I'm looking at the cohort data, and we are seeing an 80% drop-off at step 3 of the onboarding flow. What is going on? If you cannot navigate those complex cross-functional conversations without being defensive, you are going to burn cash. A UA manager who doesn't talk to product is just pouring water into a leaky bucket and blaming the faucet. It requires a level of organizational integration, empathy, and shared responsibility that most siloed digital marketers have never experienced. The ego shift is much harder than the math shift.
Pouring water into a leaky bucket and blaming the faucet. That is, honestly, it's painfully accurate. I've seen that exact dynamic destroy teams.
That happens all the time.
So for you listening right now, take a moment to evaluate your own team dynamics. Evaluate your own day-to-day workflow. Are you operating in silos? Are you trusting your gut over the hard cohort data?
Right.
Are you throwing leads over the fence to sales, or are you sitting down with the product team to figure out exactly why users are churning on day 7? Because if you want to make this leap into mobile growth, that is the reality check you need to have with yourself.
It is a demanding, rigorous transition. It requires you to rebuild your professional toolkit.
Yeah.
But it is also incredibly rewarding.
It really is.
When you finally build a campaign infrastructure that scales, and you watch a cohort of users hit 150% ROAS on day 90, and you know the exact mathematical and operational machinery that made it happen, there is no feeling quite like it in the modern marketing world. You aren't just buying ads, you are driving the economic engine of a tech company.
Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the confident interviewee. We tore down the illusions of shared skill sets. We navigated the incredibly complex black box of the app environment. We broke down the mechanics of MMPs and post-specs, and we debated the profound mindset shifts required to survive.
It's been quite the journey.
Let's synthesize all of this. If a listener is serious about making this transition, or if a growth leader is listening and trying to train up a new digital marketing hire, what are the actionable takeaways? Let's distill this into 3 specific operational things they can do tomorrow.
Takeaway number 1, and this is non-negotiable based on everything we've discussed.
Right.
If you are transitioning, prioritize mastering attribution technology immediately.
Absolutely.
Do not launch a campaign. Do not spend a single dollar of your budget until you deeply understand the mechanics of MMPs, postbacks, and scan. Go read the developer documentation for AppsFlyer or Adjust.
Yes, literally go read the docs.
Understand how attribution windows actually function. Learn the difference between deterministic tracking and probabilistic modeling. Because if you do not understand how the score is kept in this specific ecosystem, you cannot play the game. You will be making financial decisions based on hallucinations.
Perfect. That is the foundational technical layer. Takeaway number 2 is about shifting your analytical perspective. Realign your metrics dashboard.
Crucial.
If you are presenting to your leadership team or even just evaluating your own daily performance, move completely away from top-of-funnel vanity metrics. Stop bragging about your click-through rates. Stop anchoring on cheap CPCs.
Please stop.
Anchor your daily reporting entirely to lifetime value, return on ad spend, and your specific time-bound retention cohorts, day 0, day 3, day 7, day 30. Train your brain and train your executive team to only value the metrics that dictate the long-term financial survival of the product.
And takeaway number 3, building directly on our debate about the hardest mindset shift. Break down the silos in your organization. Do not operate on an island.
Right.
Set up recurring, mandatory alignment meetings between your user acquisition team, the product management team, and the monetization managers. You all need to be looking at the exact same dashboard.
Exactly the same dashboard.
Ensure the specific users you are acquiring are actually finding value in the core loop of the app, and ensure the product is continuously optimized to monetize the specific behavioral profiles of the users you are bringing in. Growth is a team sport. It cannot be solved solely through ad buying.
That structural alignment is everything. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, we always like to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to ponder.
Ooh, I love these.
Something that builds on the reality of the source material we explored today, but looks toward the horizon. Longfan's article clearly outlines the immense difficulty of attribution today, the struggle of tracking users through the black box of the App Store via MMPs and postbacks.
Right.
But if we look at the broader trajectory of the tech industry, with ongoing aggressive privacy changes, Apple's continuous updates to Scan, and Google's impending rollout of the Privacy Sandbox on Android, that dark zone between the click and the in-app event is only going to get darker. The granular user-level tracking that the mobile growth industry was built on over the last decade is actively vanishing.
Which raises an incredibly provocative question for the future of our entire profession. If the deterministic data completely goes away, if we reach a point where we can no longer perfectly match an ad click to an app install.
What happens then?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Will the future of user acquisition look less like the precise, highly technical, spreadsheet-driven digital tracking we just spent an hour describing? And will it begin to look more like traditional intuition-based broadcast marketing?
Oh.
Are we going to circle all the way back to buying mobile ads the way executives used to buy television commercials or billboard space, relying on massive scale and brand lift models rather than precise postbacks?
Oh man, the idea that the highly quantitative, spreadsheet-obsessed UA manager of today might have to start thinking like a 1960s Mad Men ad buyer tomorrow, that is a terrifying, hilarious, and utterly fascinating thought.
It really is. It changes the skill set all over again.
So the next time that overconfident digital marketer walks into the interview room expecting a clean X-ray of their campaign performance, maybe we shouldn't just warn them about the murky waters and the complex MMPs of today. Maybe we need to warn them that the lights are about to be turned off completely, and they better learn how to navigate in the dark.
Good luck to them.
Seriously. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Go master your postbacks, break down those silos, go talk to your product team, and we will catch you next time.